Diversity is our strength. Trans women are women. Zelensky is Churchill. That's the pap they're serving us day after day in steaming, lumpy portions. American citizens are the least informed people in the world. Does he think some skinny dude in a dress is actually a girl? Come on. What's happened to the hundreds of billions of US dollars we've sent to Ukraine? No clue. Who organized those BLM riots 3 years ago? No one's gotten to the bottom of that. What exactly happened on 9/11? Well, it's still classified. How did Jeffrey Epstein make all that money? How did he die? How about JFK?
What's up, guys? Boston Brian here from the Midas Touch Network, and where the hell do we even start with this one? Tucker Carlson returns to the spotlight with his collaboration with Elon Musk and Twitter with his show aptly named Tucker on Twitter, which is just great for a Boston accent, I must say. What I did not expect, but probably should have, is Tucker to come right out of the gate with Russian propaganda, anti-Semitic dog whistles, veiled racism, and just some of the craziest shit you could possibly think of. If this is any indication to some of the stuff that he wanted to cover while he was at Fox News but wasn't able to, no wonder they got rid of him. The fact that Tucker Carlson would actually risk a lawsuit from Fox News because he's in violation of his contract for this 10-minute Alex Jones impression is just absolutely fucking beyond me. For his first episode to be filled with mainly Russian propaganda is just so fitting for Tucker. I mean, who can forget when he said this?
It's a joke.
Why do I care? Why do I care what's going on in the conflict between Ukraine and Russia? And I'm serious. Why do I care?
I'll tell you why.
And why shouldn't I root for Russia, which I am?
So obviously his pro-Putin, Kremlin-backed talking points shouldn't have come as a surprise, but what was a surprise was his ability to couple those talking points with just some of the most insane conspiracy theories around.
On the front page of the New York Times website this morning, there were 5 stories about Ukraine, as well as 4 stories apiece about Donald Trump, trans people, and climate change, the usual lineup. There was nothing at all about how an alien species is flying hypersonic aircraft over our cities.
But let's see just how pro-Putin Tucker decided to be in literally episode 1 of this Twitter experiment. Here he is, already going on the offense for Russia in regards to who blew up the Novokakhovka Dam in Ukraine.
This morning it looks like somebody blew up the Kakhovka Dam in southern Ukraine. The rushing wall of water wiped out entire villages, destroyed a critical hydropower plant, and as of tonight puts the largest nuclear reactor in Europe in danger of melting down. So if this was intentional, it was not a military tactic, it was an act of terrorism. The question is, who did it? Well, let's see. The Kakhovka Dam was effectively Russian. It was built by the Russian government. It currently sits in Russian-controlled territory. The dam's reservoir supplies water to Crimea, which has been, for the last 240 years, home of the Russian Black Sea Fleet. Blowing up the dam may be bad for Ukraine, but it hurts Russia more. And for precisely that reason, the Ukrainian government has considered destroying it. So really, once the facts start coming in, it becomes much less of a mystery what might have happened to the dam. Any fair person would conclude that the Ukrainians probably blew it up.
Wait, what? Where the hell did you get that? You literally just said it was in Russian-occupied territory, which it has been since the beginning days of this illegal, premeditated invasion. And just to prove Tucker is completely ignorant and full of shit on this one, here's the actual moment the dam was blown up, captured by a Russian security camera footage they forgot to delete. I want you to pay attention to the size of the explosion, and not only the first explosion, but the secondary explosions in the background. And we know that this is in Russian-held territory, firmly held by the Russians. Now, I want you to tell me, do you think the Ukrainians could just slip in and place this amount of explosives needed to create an explosion this big without the Russians knowing? Okay, so not only do we know the dam is firmly in Russian-controlled territory, but we also have the security footage of the dam blowing up, which obviously shows an explosion far too big that would have taken too much preparation and too much time to carry out without any Russians knowing. But Ukraine even gets more specific in their information about who blew up the dam. This is from the Kyiv Independent. The Kakhovka hydroelectric power plant's dam in Kherson Oblast was blown up by Russia's 205th Motorized Rifle Brigade, National Security and Defense Council Chief Alexei Danilov said on June 6, cited by Ukrainian news outlet Liga. The brigade members have been stationed at the power plant near Russian-occupied Novokakhovka and control the facility, Danilov said on national television. The information on who had blown up the dam was first reported by Mikhailo Podolyak, an advisor to the head of Ukraine's presidential office, cited by Ukrainska Pravda publication. Podolyak added that the Russians' destruction of the power plant was an undoubted use of indiscriminate weapons of mass destruction according to the Geneva Conventions. And basically what this did is just create an unmitigated humanitarian disaster created by terrorism of the worst type. It's absolutely against the Geneva Convention, and it is absolutely a war crime. Also shows that Putin is willing to give up the Crimea because this is where the Crimea gets their water source from. So if he's going to just blow up this dam, he's going to just give up Crimea basically. And it shows how scared they are of the oncoming Ukrainian offensive.
It's not like Vladimir Putin is anxious to wage war on himself. Oh, but that's where you're wrong, Mr. and Mrs. Cable News consumer. Vladimir Putin is exactly that sort of man, the sort of man who'd shoot himself to death in order to annoy you.
If we were only that lucky. This is what Tucker loves to do sometimes. He'll basically tell you the truth, but he'll say it in such a sarcastic voice that you automatically dismiss what he's saying. However, what Tucker is purposely failing to mention is the possibility that Russia has implemented somewhat of a scorched earth policy, which is widely known and has been widely used through military conflict throughout history. This is basically just when a retreating army burns houses, burns crop, blows up bridges, blows up railways, destroys anything possible that the advancing army could use as a benefit to them. This includes shipping out all the livestock in an area so that the advancing army can't have any food to eat. It includes blowing up dams as to flood wide areas to stop the advance of the advancing army. And it just so happens that one of the best known examples of the scorched earth policy being implemented is when Germany invaded Russia back in 1941 as a part of Operation Barbarossa, and Joseph Stalin, the leader of the Soviet Union, implemented his scorched earth policy. And I can tell you right now, the blowing up of the Kakhovka Dam would have fit right in with his. We all know about Putin's obsession with seeing the Soviet state rise once more, so I'm going to read to you a little bit from Stalin's scorched earth policy, and then I'll let you be the judge of whether or not you think Putin would be capable of doing something like this. I'll throw it up here on the screen so you guys can read along, but this is just a little bit from World War II in Ukraine, Stalin's Scorched Earth Policy by Andrew Gagorovich. The retreating Soviet officials, for example, shipped 6 million cattle from Ukraine east to Russia, 550 large factories, thousands of small factories, and 300,000 tractors. The USSR also evacuated 3.5 million skilled workers from Ukraine to the Russian Republic. In the battle for Ukraine, Soviet sources say the partisans blew up nearly 5,000 enemy trains, blasted 607 railway bridges, 915 warehouses, and damaged over 1,500 tanks and armored carriers. As the Soviet authorities and armies retreated from Ukraine in 1941, Stalin's scorched earth policy left a trail of destruction, including the Dnieper Dam on the Dnieper River, which was the largest hydroelectric power dam in Europe, countless mines and major industrial factories, and the Khrushchev Street in the capital of Kiev. Couldn't one also surmise that this could have been done to inhibit the process and the advance of the Ukrainian military? I mean, I'm just asking questions.
We know this from the American media, which wasted no time this morning in accusing the Russians of sabotaging their own infrastructure.
That's because they did.
Immediately denounced Putin as a war criminal.
That's because he is, and anybody without their head up Fox News' ass or auditioning for a fucking spot on Russian state television would know that.
And even more savagely compared him to Donald Trump. The rest of the pundit class made similar, clearly coordinated noises. Putin did it! Putin did it! And their reasoning was simple. Putin is evil, and evil people do evil things purely for the dark joy of being evil.
Sounds about right to me. Or it was just done strategically to buy his piss-poor army some time. Check out this incredibly sarcastic, backhanded attack on Ukrainian President Volodymyr Zelensky. Let me know if you pick up on the very Nazi-like anti-Semitic rhetoric coming from Tucker in this next clip, and we'll talk about it after.
No one who's paid to cover these things seemed to entertain even the possibility it could have been the Ukrainians who did it. No chance of that. Ukraine, as you may have heard, is led by a man called Zelensky. And we can say for a dead certain fact that he was not involved. He couldn't have been. Zelensky is too decent for terrorism. Now, you see him on television, and it's true you might form a different impression. Sweaty and rat-like, a comedian turned oligarch, a persecutor of Christians, a friend of BlackRock. But don't believe your own eyes. Actually, Mr. Zelensky is a very good man. The best, really. As George W. Bush once noted, he is our generation's Winston Churchill. Of all the people in the world, our shifty, dead-eyed Ukrainian friend in the tracksuit is uniquely incapable of blowing up a dam.
Did you catch the coded anti-Semitism in there?
Sweaty and rat-like.
Still not getting it? Let me refresh your memory.
As this scene from the 1940 propaganda film The Eternal Jew makes clear, Jews aren't people, according to the Nazis.
Rats carry destruction, spread plague, leprosy, typhus, cholera. They run in packs and multiply in large numbers, are cunning, cowardly, and cruel.
Feige und grausam und treten meist in großen Scharen auf. Sie stellen unter den Tieren das Element der Heimtücke.
Among animals, they cause insidious destruction, just like the Jews.
Or this classic anti-Semitic trope.
Of all the people in the world, our shifty, dead-eyed Ukrainian friend in the tracksuit.
Shifty, dead-eyed Ukrainian friend might sound like a normal insult to you from Tucker Carlson, but knowing that Zelensky is Jewish, one can only assume that Shifty is dealing with the Nazi talking point that Jewish people were behind all the world's problems and somehow trying to undermine all these countries behind the scenes. And dead eyes is somehow a play on the trope that somehow Jewish people have dark, beady eyes, which is something that the Nazis were really good at putting out. Just going to read to you a little bit from Wikipedia. I'll also put this up on the screen from the stereotypes of Jewish people. In characters and cartoons, Ashkenazi Jews are usually depicted as having large hooked noses and dark, beady eyes with drooping eyelids. Exaggerated and grotesque Jewish facial features were a staple theme in Nazi propaganda. So believe me, Tucker knows what he's doing. He knows what he's saying. He knows how he's saying it. He knows his audience, and he knows what his audience likes. So it's no accident that he's talking like this and he's using the verbiage that he's using. In the last clip I'll show you in this disgusting display from Tucker Carlson, this embarrassing video that he put out on Twitter of all places. He's going to be sued for it too, which is just even fucking better. But he basically says that racism doesn't matter in a way that only Tucker Carlson could get away with saying.
So if you're wondering why our country seems so dysfunctional, this is a big part of the reason. Nobody knows what's happening. A small group of people control access to all relevant information, and the rest of us don't know. We're allowed to yap all we want about racism, but go ahead and talk about something that really matters and see what happens. If you keep it up, they'll make you be quiet. Trust us.
So basically what this tells us is that Tucker Carlson, even though he's still contracted by Fox News, has pretty much gone fully off the deep end in full-blown, unhinged conspiracy theories, Russian propaganda, Kremlin talking points. I mean, he's just throwing in the whole works right now. I'm not sure with the lawsuit pending if this continues, but if it does, I'll be sure to call out every second of it. I mean, you can see right here at the Midas Touch Network what's going on. You can tell that everything that this guy says is horseshit. Don't believe it, no matter what he says. It's on Twitter, if he says it on a morning show, if he says it on a radio show, if he says it on a podcast. If Tucker Carlson is opening his mouth, there's lies coming out. Don't forget to like, share, and subscribe, because the team that we're building here at the Midas Touch Network is just a force to be reckoned with, and it's definitely something that the Republicans are going to have to contend with coming up in the upcoming elections.